The girls of hip hop, Missy Elliott.
So I too am the beneficiary of affirmative action, but it does not mean that I was not. Oh, here you go again. I thought we left that potato salad back in the last episode.
For Memorial.
What you say? What you talking about, Willis?
Okay.
This is the All Rev'd Up podcast, and we are back for season 7. I'm Reverend Emmett Price, and I am the co-executive producer and co-host of this amazing podcast.
And I'm Reverend Irene Monroe, and I'm co to everything that he said he was co to.
Well, before we end Black History Month 2024 with our plea for no more gatekeepers, let us thank each of our listeners and viewers. This 7th season is the direct result of your support, encouragement, and comments. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for listening to us on the various podcast apps and for watching the actual live recording of the podcast on our YouTube channel. We are grateful for your support, your encouragement, your feedback, your reviews, and your comments. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for sharing this podcast with others.
And I want to piggyback on Emmett's thank you. I want to send a tsunami of thanks to all of our listeners, especially when we're off the air. And we've been off the air because of High Black Employment Month from MLK Day to the end of February. So a tsunami of thanks for your patience, waiting for us to come back. Thank you.
Now, Irene, what you say? High Black Employment Month.
That's right, for you and for me. This is the time that we get engagements to talk about DEI, all the things that white liberals particularly can check off their list, like we did DEI either for MLK and then it's a twofer should they call me back sometime in February.
Oh my goodness. Did you just say that? These people want to hear what you think and how you feel about stuff and how you're experiencing life.
Oh,
and
I feel
good.
Realize I feel very good because my pocket is my listen. My wallet is wide. Okay,
you got long money.
That's right. That's right. Okay. See, they think I'm a token, but they don't understand this. That I've always said this: if you're gonna be one, take it for a good ride. They've paid me lucratively. I believe in the American dream. Okay.
What you say?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and this is what I call Black capitalism. Because I'm entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I can say yes or no. I can call the topics, and it makes them feel good for me to tell them how I experience, other than this particular day, all those bad white days that I have.
Oh my God!
And they pay me. They feel good.
Well, I'm glad you got long money and you feel good. We're going to roll this clip from Shannon Sharp and Monique at Club Shay Shay because I think those of us who watch this understand something else about gatekeepers. This is from February 8th, 2024.
It's in the 12th grade, Shannon, and they surrounded me, right. A group of them. Okay, wanted to fight on me. Why? Because I told the truth.
What you tell?
I told Andre that was not Lawan's baby. Because that's what Lawan.
That ain't your place.
Let me tell. Wait a minute, Sugar. You gonna calm yourself down? Okay. Do you see Shannon losing himself with me?
As we end Black History Month 2024, we are shouting out folks who have made a choice to no longer be held by the gatekeepers. Folks like Shannon Sharp, whose tolerance with co-host Skip Bayless on Skip and Shannon Undisputed came to an end in June 2023. And from that freedom came the massive elevation of his podcast turned must-see 2+ hour long interviews at Club Shay Shay. Folks like Roland Martin, whose freedom from CNN gave rise to Roland Martin Unfiltered and the Black Star Network. From media networks to record labels to venture capital firms and on and on and on. Black folks are claiming our freedom and moving beyond the gatekeepers. Irene, what do you think of this increasingly prevalent and powerful statement?
It is. I love it, and I love the way it is rolling out. But for folks who don't know what gatekeepers are within Black culture, we have a couple of terms that we use. One is the spook who sat at the door, HNIC, which means Negro in charge, the overseer, the institutional mammy. So the thing is, in the gatekeeper is the person who has access of who's in and who's out, and it's always in these moments when you have a gatekeeper, they're upholding not only white supremacist thought, but also a hierarchy of power to keep not only the people that the gatekeeper think he's keeping in place, but also the gatekeeper itself here. So I'm really glad that we're finding ways as African Americans who've always, had to wait for someone to open a gate for us, that we create our own gate. We're not even waiting for the gate here uh, by others to open for us. But I think I want to just give an example where I've seen it the best here, and that has really been the creative genius to me of hip hop, the hip hop artists, because these were kids at the time, young men, who they understood that there was no recording, you know, industry that would take them. These were young black brothers who were selling their material out of the trunks of their cars and in critical mass and making enormous amount of money. These are kids who did not go to Harvard Business School, but they are top-notch businessmen. Case in point, my homeboy, Jay-Z.
So you talk about the moguls, Jay-Z and Russell Simmons, and I was about to say Diddy, but we can't say him no
No, we
more because
can't
he
say
got
him now.
got in a little trouble. But you, what's interesting that you've mentioned, we have the gatekeepers, and then we have the overlords, right?
Oh, I like
The,
that,
the
Emmett.
overlords are the people who prevent us from having access to economic development and to powerful positions, who aren't necessarily of our tribe. But you suggest that the gatekeepers are of our tribe, who
Yeah.
who are within the community and within the neighborhood, and who tend to prevent any upward mobility or uplift. So the whole
Yeah.
crabs in the barrel philosophy, that the crab is trying to get out of the pot of water, but the other crabs keep pulling it down until they all drown and get cooked. Right? I
But
mean, is
Emmett,
that?
though, I love it. I love it. But listen, then if you're using the terminology overlord, we have some overlords. Okay, they're the ones that control who's in and out, who and talk about economic mobility. I mean, we need to name it, as they say, tell the truth and shame the devil here. But we do have those overlords. I was starting with the gatekeepers because a
Mhm.
lot of our audience are familiar with that, and at that point, we didn't have a critical mass of Black people who really elevated to that level of overlord here. But what they do is the overlords, they reinscribe the same kind of power dynamics that white overlords or gatekeepers certainly employ to keep us down. So the point is that why are they reinscribing it? Who benefits from it, particularly since they're in our camp? And this is not somebody like a Clarence Thomas, where we know where he stands and his wife. But these are people who are saying, I'm lifting as we climb. So when Cat Williams, called out people, and certainly when, come on, our girl Taraji Henson
Mhm.
talked about Oprah, we, we listen, it takes us back. We have to look at that because we trust these folks, where with white overlords, using your terminology, we don't. And so
Mhm.
the question for me is, are they then the spook who sits at the door? Are they the head Negro in charge? Are these the folks? Are they the institutional mammy placating to a white power structure in blackface?
Mm. You done dropped a whole lot of philosophy and history and some contemporary call outs right there. I think we're gonna have to name some names on the other side of our break. But before we do, I'm really interested. I'm really interested in how you see this, because we're from two different generations and we're from two different coasts of the nation. How do you see this, knowing that at a certain point in time we didn't really have anything,
Right,
and
right.
and 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 now that we're amassing wealth and we're amassing opportunities, that we are still holding each other back, and we're still competing with one another, such that I'm standing on somebody's shoulders, not to elevate both of us, but to drill them into the ground so that I can suppress them and
I
whatnot.
appreciate that, because I have to call that out, and that's my generation, the Boomer generation, because we are two generations. I'm you no, you're one generation behind me. But what damage we have done in trying to lift as we climbed here. Part of that is, I think there's a pivot here. My generation is the beneficiary of the civil rights movement, and one of the things that what was asked of us, even of King and all of the leaders of that time, is that we entered those white institutions. Okay, so of course that's why I went to Wellesley, Columbia, and Harvard, and blah 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 blah. But by the time we are having children your age and your children's children, we realize that notion of integration is not working. We now see it, because we've tried it. We have tried it. And what we're seeing with your generation, that hip hop generation, is that, see, it doesn't matter if you have a PhD from Harvard or not. Or people, wait a minute, it doesn't even matter if you were the president of Harvard for 6 months and 2 days. Okay. The point is that power structure, that hierarchy of power, keeps you in your place. So what we're understanding is that we're going to a model that was built before we decided that we should abandon it. And when we talk about Black entrepreneurship, we're going back to Jim Crow America, because in many ways we have been living in Jim Crow America, but we've experienced it systemically, without the placards, without the water fountain that says for coloreds and Blacks. But we've reached, glass ceilings, the implicitness around, institutional racism, to the point that when you talk about critical race theory that can sort of debunk it and correct it, we don't want to do it. So my generation is very much gatekeepers, because now we should be retiring. Now, well, I'm retired. I want the audience to know. We should
say it loud.
Yes, and I'm quite proud. Listen. I'm doing it for my ancestors. Okay, when I came of age to retire, that is something that they wish they could have. But my point is that feeling threatened, playing into that white dominant system, always gives us a sense of insecurity. We're not good enough. There's not enough of us, so we have to stomp, if not annihilate, or and then play into them. That's where we be that token, because you see, they'll say they have Black representation.
Ooh, you need to stop. I'm cutting you off. I'm cutting you off,
all
because
right,
our young producers, our very young producers, I'm gonna talk about them in a second. Our young producers are telling us we need to take a break. Irene, I gotta cut you off, because you're getting long-winded. You're getting long in the tooth, as they used to say. We're gonna come back. This is the All Rev'd Up podcast. We'll be right back.
I'm sorry.
Where's my raise? I haven't seen a raise in my income since Proud Mary. And almost had to walk away from Color Purple. Yes, ma'am.
There's no validity to there being a thing between Taraji and I.
Yeah, I think that people want to find something, but Taraji was talking about Hollywood in general and how the landscape for Black actresses. But once again, Color Purple is a space and a place where Black actresses thrive.
Ah, yes.
This is the All Rev'd Up podcast, and we're back. You just heard Taraji P. Henson in her interview for SAG-AFTRA Foundation in December of 2023. Oh my goodness. I remember when this came out, Irene, and I remember when I heard it, and I was like, no, this is not possible. And yet over time, we've heard a number of our highly decorated celebrities, actors and actresses who have worked with others within our family, within our kin, and who have been mistreated, disrespected, and devalued, by these handlers. I want you to talk about that, because I got some other questions for you.
Well, I think what bothers me about it is that if people watch the entire interview, they will see Taraji Henson break down in tears.
Yeah.
She is one of the top tier, not Black actress, but actress.
That's correct.
In Hollywood. She is, theatrically trained. She can perform in many venues, whether it is musical, dramatic, comedic, sassy as an empire. But my point is that, you know, and it called out Oprah because this was during the time that the cast was doing their tour for the now musical The Color Purple. And so, and she said, I almost, walked away. She said, I'm making the same amount of money. Come on now, that I made at Proud Mary. What is that? 6, 7 years ago? You're
Yeah.
talking about it. And she carries. Wait, in Color Purple, she carries the show. She's one of the principal actors in the show here. So it does hurt us. It's like a double whammy in terms of, you know our kinfolk, exploiting us. I mean, I heard, like, in that interview where the woman said that, Hollywood uses Oprah as a handler, so that's to keep us in our place, but at the same time it keeps her. See, the point is that she reinscribing the power dynamic because it keeps her in her place as well. So I mean, it's very much problematic, and she doesn't have to do that because she has left us a marvelous legacy.
Yes.
She has open doors. So I don't quite get it why she's doing it, but she's not alone. We hear this about Tyler Perry, who has built a whole studio. See, Black folks no longer have to go to Hollywood. We can just go down to Atlanta, Georgia. And so it really bothers me that they would reinscribe such a power dynamic of exploiting their workers.
What's interesting is that most people don't talk about Byron Allen,
Oh,
who has
yeah.
built a phenomenal network and just portfolio. And I haven't heard, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I haven't heard the same scandal with him relative to what he's doing. I think it's really, it's hard. It's hard to hear. It's hard to um, deal with the fact that Oprah, who trailblazer, I mean, who really paved a way. And when you hear folks like Taraji P. Henson or Monique, who we heard from earlier, talk about that they were deeply inspired by Oprah. And here
Right.
we are, we're at this place. So I need to flip this just a little bit because I have heard you over the many years that we've been together doing radio commentary on NPR. You talk about the black white supremacist. What is that, Irene?
Okay, I'm gonna give you a face, and then I can tell you. Classic face would be Clarence Thomas. The Supreme Court is no longer a Roberts Court; it's Clarence Thomas Court. But a black white supremacist is Clarence Thomas in this way: that we have to understand that white supremacy is an ideology, and that white people are not the only people who have who espouse it, and that when you understand it as an ideology or a belief system, like we believe in Christianity as a belief system, you see it permeate itself in various forms of people's identities, issues around their issues around power or lack of power. And so we got to understand that. I think what people might also understand, if you understand a black white supremacist, you'll also understand then the white gaze. Toni Morrison talks about that, and then W.E.D. Du Bois talks about that double consciousness. And my point is that recognizing that double consciousness, the problem with the color line, how do you do it? How do you interpret? How do you internalize it? And a lot of that has to do with whether you become a black white supremacist, or you become a liberation figure. So that's the problem. And I think that Zora Neale Hurston said it best, that all our skin folk are not our kinfolk. And let me just say this is not a moment to dog Oprah.
That's right.
This is not an ad hominem attack on her or Tyler Perry. But the point is that they're not beyond critique. You have to understand, with all the money and power that they have, why are they reinscribing those dynamics and oppressing a younger generation? Taraji Henson is your generation. So it gets back to my premise. Whether my generation, whether it's intentional or not, we're gatekeepers. Let's be real. We're gatekeepers. Okay, and the part of that has to do with some of the way in which we interpret King's promise to enter these places, and then having made it through these places. You know how some people say, well, I made it, no damn body else will make it. I'm not opening, you open the door yourself because nobody opened it. Not understanding that, yes, we stand on the shoulders of so many others. And I think what happens with us, my generation, being the only Black person in the courtroom, in the boardroom, in the classroom, it can give you the illusion you did this all by yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that you lose that connection of community, not understanding that in their invisibility tells you community is with you and are standing with you. You're doing what you're supposed to do, but not at the point that you lift up the ladder and leave everybody behind.
I appreciate you really breaking down the ideologies and the philosophical approaches, because we're not necessarily saying that Oprah and Tyler Perry are
Oh
black,
no.
white, racist, white
Oh,
supremacists. But what we're saying is that there's a varying stream of different ideologies that people buy into, believe,
and act out.
and act out. Cornel West would often say that all of us have ingested white supremacy in our education through the Western education system. And he challenges us that when we know that, when we understand that, what do we do to detox?
That's right.
So that we can get that out of our system, right? And he talks about Black music as being one of those great detoxifications, as we absorb the soul music and the R&B and the gospel and the spirituals and the country. Hello, Beyonce,
That's
come
right.
through, please.
That's right.
And
That's
and
right.
then also hip hop and post things. I mentioned earlier.
But I just want to say this:
Yep.
my mentor was a gatekeeper. I love him. He's gone on. The Reverend Doctor
Peter Gomes. Yeah.
Peter Gomes. You could not enter when they were looking for Black faculty for the divinity school. You would not get there unless you got the nod from Peter Gomes. So that's when I talk about the overseer.
Mhm.
The head Negro in charge. You get in because I say so. So that's where you become the handler for a white racist institution that don't really want you there, but you are doing their bidding in blackface.
Well, let me call out our producers, because we got two phenomenal producers. One is a millennial, the other is a post
Yeah,
millennial,
I
and
know.
I'm inspired by the fact that Irene, you talked about your generation, as being the generation to hold a job for 40, 50, 60, 70 years, not retire. And keep all the spots away. My generation, is kind of tussling with your generation, looking for a baton that often is not passed. And so we have to figure out, do we take the baton,
Yes,
or
you
do we
do.
try to go down the street and create something new? But the millennial generation comes up and said, you know what, y'all are bugging. I'm not working this job for 40 years. I'm not going to, put all of my hope in some retirement and watch it get dissolved like Enron and all those kind of things. And so they began this kind of entrepreneurial system that helped to really develop a renewed sense of economic development within our community. And
Black
then
capitalism.
black capitalism. And then the post millennials like, what? We
Yeah.
got digital this, child,
Yeah.
we're gonna be influencers.
Yeah.
We gonna just take over all the stuff, based on all of the evolution and all of the innovation that has come before them. And what I want people to understand is that each of these generations have stood on the shoulders of those before and honored, even as we criticize. So
Yeah.
we can do that with the Oprah and even with the Tyler Perry.
That's right.
We can honor them for their innovation and creativity
And
and for all the things that they
and say
do.
this: we're always going back and forth with some what I call important pillars in our community around their ideology, and that is Booker T. Washington, the
Yeah.
accommodationist one, aspects of let's integrate, and then you got W.E.D. Du Bois, a much more progressive voice, and then you got Marcus Garvey,
Yeah.
who talks about Black entrepreneurship, Black capitalism. But we had that, and with our own businesses. But it was the whole idea of being integrated in America, believing that promise, did it, but again, end up losing accumulated wealth in doing so.
Well, let me close this, because our young folks are telling us that the time is up. It was Mother Fannie Lou Hamer who, on December 20th, 1964, delivered a speech at the Williams Institutional CME, Christian Methodist Episcopal Church in Harlem, for the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party's congressional challenge, where she proclaimed, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired," invoking the spirit of Mother Araminta Ross, aka Harriet Tubman, and the gumption of Isabella Baumfree, aka Sojourner Truth. Hamer refused to be held captive by the racist gatekeepers who didn't want her or her kinfolk to vote. Now here, these gatekeepers or overlords were not necessarily the black folks, but they were the non-melanated folks who were still citizens of the same area. It's the spirit of these powerful black women that inspired the potent transformation from silence to the loud voice of Mother Marguerite Annie Johnson, aka Maya Angelou, to project and still I rise. That same spirit inspired Auntie Marguerite Walker to write For My People, and Sister Amanda Gorman to remind them to call us what we carry. While I'm calling names of historic and contemporary freedom fighters, let me not forget to call the name of First Lady Michelle Obama, who refused to allow their lowness to keep her crown from on high. Let me call out the name of President Claudine Gay. By the way, they accused Mother Phyllis Wheatley of plagiarism too. Anyway, as I list the names of these phenomenal black women, and don't be concerned, I know it's not Women's History Month yet, but these bold, brilliant, beautiful sisters, black in all the ways possible, remind us to lift our voice loud and proud, to never be ashamed of who we are and can be, and to always keep it real, keep it loud, and keep it proud. Well, let me end this benediction by saying this. We seek the divine intervention to end the gatekeeper, overlording, and hateration. Let's support one another, and if we choose not to, go somewhere and sit down and mind your own business. Amen.
Amen.
And Ashe.
And Ashe.
All Rev'd Up is brought to you by us, the Revs. Our amazing producers are Kyla Wright and Cavante Smalls.
Music for this episode is from Reverend Price's son and musical prodigy Emmett G. Price IV. All Rev'd Up is distributed by GBH.
Additional thanks to Bob Kempf, Elizabeth O'Brien, May He, Devin Robbins, Meredith Neerman, and Zach Waldman.
If you like what you hear, let us know. Give us a review on Apple Podcasts and follow us at All Rev'd Up Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
Feel free to send us a note, a question, or a comment to allrevduppod@gmail.com. We'll be back